Good morning. So today, let's continue talking about intimacy and how important it is to develop it with ourselves and in our close relationships, and how a lot of times people just want that level of physical intimacy, but when it gets to emotional intimacy, there is still a lot of immaturity around it, because maybe the home that we grew up in, there were certain emotions that were unacceptable for our parents to feel, probably because of their conditioning, and then that got passed down onto us, and we shut down when we experience these emotions. Uh, so what I find often is because I have decided to feel these things for myself and set out on a journey of uncovering what are the things that I feel are hidden inside of me. And I've developed that intimacy with myself. A lot of times people want to connect with me so they could experience themselves in these ways, or sharing with rabbits and squirrels. And I understand that a lot of people are emotionally lonely. And loneliness is an emotion that people don't talk about much. Uh, and a lot of people seem to have it all together, because, we live in this society of you're supposed to have it all together. See, look what's happening. So we need to fix this. Uh, but on the outside, people can have it all together, and I was one of these people, where, like, everything seemed fine and everything seemed wonderful, but I was in a marriage that there was no emotional intimacy whatsoever, and I didn't realize that until, you know, I felt what emotional intimacy is like through friendships. And I thought, wow, why is that not happening over here? And then, I realized, oh, okay, this is the kind of family I grew up in, because of various stuff, just kind of like national trauma, call it whatever you want to. There isn't much emotional intimacy in my family. I mean, everybody behaved nice for the most part. Um, but there wasn't that close connection when it came to feelings of sadness and grief and healthy expression of anger. So a lot of times through friendships, we can learn more about emotional intimacy, and uh, feel what it feels like with a person who is safe and knows how to express their emotions in an appropriate way. Um, and then we can learn, like, oh, okay, maybe it's okay for me to express these emotions as well. And when we express them to a person, it doesn't feel so lonely. For example, if you lost somebody close to you, if you're able to grieve with other people who have known that person in an intimate way and they really miss them, it's so much easier to share that grief, because you know that they can join you in that feeling because they're experiencing it as well, and you don't feel so alone. And if you start crying or you feel sad about that person being gone, the other person can say, like, I can relate, because I know what it feels like. I'm not simply like imagining it. I'm not just trying to feel the feeling that you're feeling, but I have felt the intensity of that feeling before and the depth of it. And I can really, like, feel it with you, and you're not alone in this. So in this way, we're not alone at all in the feelings that we experience as humanity. But until we share, we don't know that we're not alone. And a lot of times we feel like, oh, I'm the only person that ever experiences like this feeling, or like nobody else feels like this, or something is wrong with me because I feel like this. But it's not true. Like everybody experiences these feelings. However, a lot of times we don't talk about them. I'm getting mosquito bites, I can tell you. Because uh, we just don't want to burden people. We want to seem like everything is okay. We have maybe like some shame or guilt around our feelings, and oh, something's really eating the tomato. And then we suppress them or repress them, and when we don't feel them, what happens is in the same way, like with all the weeds in the garden, if you let them go, what happens is I drop tomatoes. That's what happens. Um, if you let them go, then like that happens. You just get a lot of weeds, right? So it's constant maintenance. Like if I didn't fix that tomato cage, then what happens is that that tomato is going to be on the ground. So the same with feelings. Like if we do not feel them when we're experiencing them in the moment, maybe like the moment is not the most appropriate time, but we return to these feelings at a later point, and let's go back to the sunflowers, and say, okay, now I'm just gonna give myself a container and feel that feeling, and give myself like the space to truly experience that. And sometimes like the way you feel feelings could be different for everybody, but maybe you just need to like dance it out or share it with somebody. Oh, there's a bee over there. Or journal about it, or just like sit with it, or take a bath, or like have a cup of tea, or like lay in bed and feel shitty. And what I find is that a lot of people struggle with that intense loneliness because they don't have anybody to share those feelings with, and especially men, because a lot of men have been conditioned that it is not appropriate to share feelings, especially like vulnerabilities, when you have fear, when you are anxious or worried about something. I think this is a huge yellow tomato, and I tell you what, I'm gonna pick it before somebody eats it. So then they want to connect, but the other thing that happens is, at least for me, I'm like, sure, I'll be your friend and I'll talk to you about your feelings. However, when they experience emotional intimacy with me, in what I believe it's like, okay, we're friends, then a lot of times what happens is then they feel like, oh, okay, I want you to be my girlfriend, or I want to sleep with you. And then I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is not how I feel it. and uh, and again, if I'm feeling it too, then it's like, oh, that's wonderful, but if I'm not feeling it, at the same time, I don't wish to be responsible. And if I pull away, then what happens is those people get their feelings hurt. And it's like, okay, how do we do this? And a lot of times they're not even open to having a conversation where I can explain and say, hey, listen, for me, emotional intimacy is something normal that I experience with all of my friends and friendships. So it's not like you're not a special person, but to me, this is like normal to be able to be human with other human beings. And the fact that I'm kind and open and loving, try to be for the most part, with people in general, and I offer friendship, I feel it should be taken into consideration. And if I reject you in a romantic sense, it's not personal. It's either like I'm not attracted to you, or like I just have different focus in the moment, or there could be so many various reasons, or they have a certain behavior or habit that does not really agree with me, or our lifestyles are incompatible, and there's so much stuff that goes on, when it comes to relationships. But I feel, if the two people are more emotionally stable and can clearly express emotions, and I've had that happen with friendships as well, is what can happen is that the person can openly talk about how they feel about me, and then I can openly talk about how I feel about them, and we can still maintain a beautiful friendship where all of that is in the open. And I've mentioned in the previous video, but I'm mentioning it again because I realize, like, now, because this keeps happening, I almost don't want to, like, connect with men like this as a friendship, because I feel like, okay, am I actually, like, helping you, or is it gonna end up hurting you more because you were in that state? So it's very tricky, and I don't know what's right. But in any case, what I wanted to say, I guess, is that we should not be afraid to be emotionally vulnerable with other human beings, because we're all experiencing the same feelings. And even when it comes to, feeling that all of the things that happen in the world that are horrible, and we're worried and afraid and concerned and grieving of other people experiencing sadness. And again, just being able to share that, let it go, and yet focus on your own experience at this moment, and how can you feel better and take care of the people around you. Um, so it's this tricky part of being open to everything, and at the same time keeping that focus. Okay, I'm just one human being, so what can I do at this moment? What I can do is pick those vegetables and enjoy them, and be grateful that my neighbors have this amazing yard and garden, and they share with me, and we take care of it together. And as you can see, it's not perfect because that's their first year of maintaining the garden. But we're able to talk about things together and be like, you know what, our zucchini died. Why? Because there was this rot in the root, and then I read about it, and I put this powder on them, so now they're kind of surviving. And I think it's really beautiful that we can have this open communication and nurture the garden together, and realize, okay, we do not have it perfect, but we're learning. And this year we're trying and doing these things, and then next year this is what we can do better. And this, to me, is true for any kind of relationship, this acceptance that we're learning through one another. And if there's the openness to share, a person can learn from every relationship. And if somebody has been, like, kind and open and loving towards you, you could acknowledge that and say, wow, I really like you and I wish you could be my girlfriend, whatever. But at the same time, I understand that this is not what you're looking for in this moment, or that you're not attracted to me, or which I don't want it to be like a personal thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with anybody, it's just attraction's either there or not. So to me, it's not so much about just the physical appearance, but I don't know what it is. It's a combination of many things. And just be honest, or like, if you're attracted to somebody and they're attracted to you, but you don't feel like you're in the right space for a relationship, again, you can define what kind of relationship do you want to have. And relationships don't have to be like this thing, like we move in together and we get married and all of that, but it could be more like let's define what works for us at this moment, which I've had a relationship like this where it's like, this is the space that I'm at, and I really like you. But I don't even know if it's okay for me to be in a relationship right now. So if you're open with giving this a try, and not defining it in traditional terms, let's do it, and we did it, and it worked really good because of the open communication. uh, so yeah, just kind of being more open, and not everything needs to be a certain way, but it can be the way it is for us at this moment. And if we can communicate it to another person, then we don't have to watch these videos of how uh, how men are and women are and what do they think and what they don't think. But you can just go to that particular person and ask them everything that you want to ask them. And of course, if you have that level of intimacy. Look at the way these tomatoes grow. I just want to show you this. So there's like the biggest one, and then they're like smaller. They're just in the order of the way they bloomed. So yeah, there's this natural growth and progression that happens. And all I want to say, I guess, is just if you're open and honest with yourself, and if you can be open and honest with other people, it makes it so much easier to move through life, and you don't have to be lonely because you can have really good close friendships and experience intimacy, and it's very rewarding. And when you can feel all your feelings and share them with the right people, and not feel so alone in that human experience.